No one expected the war to start with music. Joran, a human mechanic from Earth, stood near the repair deck of the orbital station, humming to himself while fixing a broken valve. The station buzzed with activity, mostly diplomats and traders from over 50 alien species. Earth had been accepted into the Galactic Accord only 5 years ago, and so far, peace had held strong. But peace ended the moment the Karsan fleet appeared without warning and opened fire on the Andurian. Delegation ship docked at Bay 3. Screams echoed through the metal halls. Alarms blared. Ships launched without clearance. Joran barely dodged a falling support beam as the ceiling cracked and split apart. He didn't even have time to grab his tools before a shockwave hurled him against the wall. Evacuate! Evacuate! Someone yelled in his cums, but the static swallowed their voice before he could recognize who it was. He crawled across the floor, blood running down his forehead, trying to reach the service tunnel. His legs ached and his ribs felt broken. But something deep inside him refused to stop. As the corridor lights flickered, he caught a glimpse of something strange. A tall figure stood in the smoke, glowing faintly silver. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She simply stared through the chaos, watching everything burn around her with terrifying calm. Joran blinked. Her long white armor shimmered, and a thin golden crown hovered above her head. She wasn't human. Not even close. Her eyes were violet and reptilian, her movements smooth like water. That was when he realized she was royalty. Alien royalty. He didn't know her species. He didn't care. A bomb went off behind her, and still she stood like a statue. It wasn't bravery. It was something colder. Without thinking, Joran rushed forward and tackled her to the floor just before another blast lit the corridor. They rolled behind a support beam as debris rained down. She gasped for breath, surprised, angry, but not afraid. "You dare touch the Queen of Kalari?" she hissed. In a low voice. Joran didn't answer. He just yanked her up and kept running. He had no idea where he was taking her. The only thing he knew was that she wouldn't survive unless she moved. And even though she looked like she could crush him with one hand, she didn't resist. She followed. Somewhere near the lower cargo bay, they found cover behind a supply crate. The explosion sounded farther away now. Joran collapsed, panting, as the alien queen stood over him, her eyes scanning his face. "You're human," she said softly. "Your kind is not known for this kind of bravery," Joran chuckled weakly and wiped blood from his lip. "Well, we surprise people sometimes." The queen tilted her head. She looked at him like he was a puzzle she hadn't expected to see. Then she noticed the small device in his pocket, glowing faintly. She reached down and plucked it from his jacket. "What is this?" she asked. "It's just my phone," he said quickly. "It's nothing, old tech." "Human stuff." She tapped the screen. It flickered on. A photo appeared. Her photo. The queen froze. Her hand trembled slightly, the first sign of emotion she had shown since the attack began. She stared at the image of herself, wearing a battle crown and ceremonial robes, standing in front of a glowing blue tree. "How do you have this?" she whispered. Joran looked at her confused. "I don't know. I downloaded a bunch of pics. When I was studying alien species. I didn't know who you were back then. You kept this image," she said again. Her voice sounded distant. "Out of all the files, this one remains. Why?" "I guess it looked powerful," he said honestly. "You look like someone who'd changed the world." She said nothing. For a full minute, she just stared at the screen. Then she did something that shocked him even more than the attack had. She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was sad. Cold, like someone who had lost too much to even remember what warmth felt like. But it was real. She slipped the phone back into his jacket and looked toward the burning corridor behind them. "You saved me. A stranger." "A queen. Why?" Joran winced as he stood. "Because you were about to die." and I didn't like the idea of watching someone die while I could still help. You risked yourself for a foreign enemy, she said, stepping closer. Do all humans behave this way? No, just the crazy ones. Far above them, the Karsan fleet tightened its grip on the station. Rescue ships were blocked. Communications jammed. The war had only just begun, but in that quiet corner of fire and smoke, something had shifted. Not just between two strangers, but between two worlds. Joran kept close behind the alien queen as they moved through the dark maintenance tunnels. The station groaned above them. Distant crashes and vibrations shook the floor beneath their feet. Joran's body ached with every step, but he refused to stop. The queen walked with a silent strength. She didn't complain or ask questions. She simply followed the path like she had already memorized every turn. Joran opened a service door with the security override chip he had stolen months ago from a lazy officer. The queen raised an eyebrow but didn't speak. The door slid open to reveal a small chamber filled with old tools, power cells, and broken ventilation panels. It was quiet. Safe for now, Joran stepped inside and leaned against the wall. His hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of everything that had just happened. The queen studied the room, then turned her eyes back to him. You bleed too easily, human, she said. I get that a lot, he replied, trying to smile through cracked lips. You shouldn't have survived the blast, she added. Your kind is soft, and yours is what? Indestructible? He asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the far wall and pressed her palm against it. A faint blue light scanned her hand, and a map flickered to life. Joran stared in surprise. Wait, how did you do that? This is a human station. It was human once, she replied. Now, the Kalari have deeper access than you think. Joran stepped forward, frowning. You're saying you've been spying on us? I'm saying this war didn't start today, she replied. You just noticed it today. The words hit harder than he expected. Joran sat down on a crate and rubbed his eyes. So why were you here? On this station, I mean. I came to warn your leaders, she said. But they laughed, called me a queen of a fading empire. Said the Karsan threat was political fiction. Sounds like them, Joran muttered. She looked at him closely. You are not a soldier. You are not trained. Why are you here? I fix things, vents, pipes, power cells. I'm nobody important. But you ran into fire to save me, she said again. You risked everything without knowing my name, Joran leaned forward. I didn't care about your title. I just didn't want another body in the hallway. The queen was quiet. Then she sat across from him on a power conduit, her eyes never leaving his face. Your phone, she said suddenly. The image you saved, it was from my coronation, Joran blinked. That wasn't labeled. I just thought it looked cool. You looked, I don't know, brave, lonely too. I was, she said simply. They sat in silence for a while. No gunfire, no orders. Just two people from different worlds in the middle of a war they didn't start. I don't know what happens next, Joran finally said. Then you are honest. That is rare among your kind, she replied. Joran nodded. So what now? You going to arrest me? Execute me? Say I kidnapped royalty? She stood and walked to him. Then she did something strange. She extended her hand. I owe you my life. Human. That is a debt not easily forgotten among the Kalari. Joran hesitated, then shook her hand. Her skin was cool, not cold, not warm. Just strange. Footsteps echoed beyond the vent shaft. Joran froze. The queen stepped back and pulled a small silver dagger from her armor. Stay quiet, she whispered. He crouched low, heart racing. The footsteps grew louder, then stopped. Then turned and vanished. The queen looked through the vent grate one last time, then turned to Joran. We move now. Before they send tracking units. Joran grabbed a wrench and followed her as she opened a new tunnel hidden behind a power box. He had never seen this path before. It didn't exist on any map. He knew. As they walked deeper into the metal maze, he asked softly, "Do you think there's a way to stop this war?" She didn't answer immediately. Her voice came slow, heavy. "There might be. But it starts with someone no one expects." Joran didn't know if she meant him or herself. But he followed her anyway, not because she was a queen. Not because he owed her anything. But because he had already made a choice when he ran into the fire, and now there was no turning back. Joran followed the queen through the hidden path, deeper into the old maintenance shafts. The metal walls were tight and rusted. The tunnel was not meant for regular use. Pipes hissed on either side as old systems struggled to stay alive. Neither of them spoke. Their footsteps were soft, but the silence around them made every step sound like thunder. Joran's legs burned. He was tired, but he didn't complain. He knew stopping now could mean death. The queen walked like she didn't feel pain or fear. Her focus never broke. She moved like someone used to danger. They reached a dead end, or at least it looked like one. Joran frowned and stepped forward, inspecting the sealed wall. The queen pulled a small crystal from her belt and pressed it into a slot Joran had never noticed before. A smooth hiss followed, and the wall slid open, revealing a chamber filled with old tech and glowing screens. "This place isn't on the station map," Joran whispered. "It wouldn't be," she said. "This is a Kalori shadow node. Built in secret after the Accord denied our warnings." Joran stepped inside. The air was cold and dry. Dust floated in the light beams from old consoles. It looked untouched for years. "You had spies here all along," Joran said quietly. "Not spies," she corrected. "Guardians, silent watchers, ready to act if needed. Today is that day." She walked to a panel and placed her hand on it. The screens lit up. Joran watched as alien symbols blinked and spun into view. The queen scanned the data, her fingers moving fast. Her eyes narrowed. "The Karsan are not just attacking this station. They are targeting the border worlds next." Joran leaned over her shoulder. "Why now? What do they want?" "Control. Fear. They believe humans are weak. That the Accord has grown soft," she said without looking at him. "They might be right," Joran muttered. She turned to face him. "But you're not weak. You proved that." Joran shifted uncomfortably. "I'm just a mechanic. I don't know how to stop a war." "You don't have to," she said. "You only have to survive long enough to deliver something." Joran blinked. "Deliver what?" She tapped a flashing button on the screen. A small drawer opened from the wall. Inside was a metal cube with glowing lines across it. "This contains the message I brought. Proof that the Karsan planned this. A warning no one listened to. Then we take it to the Accord," Joran said. She looked at him with sharp eyes. "No, we take it to Earth." Joran hesitated. "Earth? They'll never believe me." "They will," she said firmly. "Because you have something even more powerful than proof." He stared at her, confused. "What?" "Me," she replied. It hit him then. The risk, the message, the queen herself. She wasn't just royalty. She was a symbol. If Earth saw her alive, standing beside a human, they might finally listen. "We'll need a ship," he said. "There's one docked in Sector 9. Small. Fast. Unregistered. We go there." She replied. Joran nodded and followed her out of the room. As they walked, he couldn't stop thinking about how strange this day had become. He had started at fixing a leaking pipe. Now he was holding the fate of worlds in his hands. They returned to the tunnel. The queen moved faster now. She didn't say it, but Joran could feel the tension rising. They passed broken doors and burned out lights. Each hallway looked worse than the last. The station was dying, piece by piece. Joran's cum unit crackled. A voice broke through the static. Anyone alive? We need help in Bay 2. Repeat, Bay 2. He stopped, frozen. That was Lyra's voice, a technician he worked with. She was still alive. The Queen turned. Ignore it. We must reach the ship. Joran clenched his jaw. She's my friend. I can't leave her. You leave now and you risk everything, the Queen said calmly. He stared down the dark hallway. His hands shook. He didn't know what to do. Then, slowly, he turned back to her. Then we save her. Together. The Queen didn't move for a moment. Then she gave a single nod. They turned and ran toward Bay 2, knowing time was almost gone. Joran ran ahead with the Queen close behind him as they moved toward Bay 2. Smoke filled the air and sparks fell from shattered ceiling panels. The walls were black with burns, and the sound of distant shouting echoed through the ruined corridors. Joran's mind raced. He remembered Lyra laughing in the cafeteria just 2 days ago. Now she could be lying under rubble, bleeding or worse. The Queen said nothing, but her movements stayed fast and focused. She followed him without argument. They reached a collapsed hallway where part of the floor had caved in. Joran stopped, scanning for another way across. We'll never reach her in time if we turn back, he said. The Queen studied the broken floor. Then she leapt forward, landing on a metal beam stretched between two shattered support pipes. Joran cursed under his breath, then followed. The beam wobbled but held under his weight. They reached the other side and continued running. The air was hotter here. Flames danced on the edges of doors blown open by shockwaves. They turned a corner and stopped. Ahead, 3 armored Karzan soldiers were dragging 2 technicians across the floor. Joran's fists tightened. One of the technicians was Lyra. Her face was bruised, but she was alive. The Queen placed a hand on his shoulder and whispered, "Wait!" She reached into her cloak and pulled out a silver rod. With a twist, it extended into a long blade with glowing edges. Joran gave her a look. "You're royalty. You know how to fight too?" "Kaleri queens are not crowned unless they can defeat a general in single combat," she replied. Before he could answer, she moved, fast, silent, like wind through metal. She struck the first Karzan soldier before he even noticed. The second raised his weapon, but she spun low and cut his legs out from under him. Joran rushed forward as the third aimed at her. He didn't think. He just swung a loose pipe at the soldier's head. The Karzan fell with a grunt, and Joran stood over him, breathing hard. The Queen looked at him and nodded once. "Acceptable," he laughed weakly. "I'll take that as a compliment." Joran ran to Lyra and helped her up. She winced but managed a weak smile. "Didn't think you'd show up with a space princess." "I aim to surprise," Joran said. Other technician was unconscious. The Queen lifted him with ease and slung him over her shoulder like he weighed nothing. They moved quickly back toward the tunnels. No more soldiers blocked their path, but the walls shook more violently now. "The ship," the Queen said. "We must reach it before the Karzan destroy the lower docks." Joran nodded and supported Lyra as they moved. Every light flickered. Every door sparked. The station was falling apart around them. When they reached Sector 9, the small ship sat, waiting behind a sealed gate. The Queen placed her hand on the control panel. "Access granted." "This ship recognizes my bloodline," she said. The door opened with a hiss, and the group moved inside. Joran helped Lyra into a seat while the Queen placed the unconscious man in a stasis pod. Inside the ship, everything looked alien, smooth, silent, alive in a strange way. The ship responded to her presence like it could feel her. The Queen sat in the command chair, and the vessel lifted gently without a sound. Joran stared out the window as they flew through the burning remains of the station. He saw ships in flames, bodies floating, and entire sections torn from the structure. It looked less like a battle and more like a graveyard. "We can't go straight to Earth," Joran said. "They'll track us. I know a hidden relay point, the Queen said. We go dark there. Then make the jump. Lyra coughed behind them. You're not gonna explain any of this? Joran glanced back. She's a queen, I'm a janitor. We're saving the galaxy. That's all I've got right now. The Queen didn't turn, but a faint smile played on her lips. Joran sat down beside her. He didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time, he didn't feel powerless. He was part of something. Now, not because he planned it, not because he wanted glory, but because he made one choice when it mattered most, and that choice had started something neither of them could stop. The small Kalari ship flew through dark space, silent and fast. Behind them, the station shrank into a distant, broken shell. It no longer looked like a hub of peace, but a floating tomb lit by fire. Joran sat near the command deck, staring at the stars. His fingers tapped his knee while his mind ran in circles. The Queen sat calmly in her throne-like chair, guiding the ship with slow, graceful movements. Lyra rested in a padded seat near the back. Her injuries were stable, but her face showed the strain of everything they had witnessed. Where is this relay point? Joran finally asked. The Queen answered without turning. A forgotten Kalari post, buried in the rings of a dead planet. Even the Accord doesn't know of it. Joran nodded slowly. And after that? Straight to Earth? Yes, we deliver the message cube and let your leaders decide the next move, she said. You sound like you don't believe they'll do the right thing, Joran said. I've spoken to your leaders before. They care more for peace than for truth. But truth will not wait much longer. Joran leaned back in his chair and sighed. He didn't know if Earth's governments would listen to one mechanic and an alien queen. The ship's lights dimmed as they entered the shadow of a massive ringed world. Dust and ice surrounded them, sparkling like shattered glass. The Queen slowed the ship and brought it toward a small asteroid with an artificial surface. A hidden door opened as they approached. Inside was a docking bay filled with old Kalari tech. The machines were covered in dust, but the power system still worked. As the ramp lowered, Joran helped Lyra out of her seat. The Queen stepped forward, scanning the silent facility with sharp eyes. This place looks ancient, Joran said. It was built during the last war, long before Earth joined the Accord. She replied. They entered the control room, and the Queen activated a terminal. A soft hum filled the air as systems came online. Joran placed the message cube into a glowing slot. The screen lit up with alien text, and a series of encoded files began transmitting. There, the message is now ready to send, the Queen said. Send to who? Joran asked. To every Accord Council leader and to Earth's highest command. She said. Lyra stepped closer. You're really doing this? You're dragging Earth into a full galactic war. No, the Queen said calmly. The war has already begun. I'm giving Earth a chance to survive it. Joran walked to the window and stared out at the quiet rings of the planet. It was peaceful here, but that peace was a lie. He remembered the fire, the soldiers, the way the Queen had looked at her own image on his phone. None of it made sense, and yet it all felt connected. You never told me why your picture was in the database I downloaded, he said. The Queen looked at him. That image was taken by a Kalari observer who once visited Earth long ago. He said your people reminded him of ours before we became proud. Joran blinked. So it wasn't official. It wasn't meant for public view. No, it was meant to be forgotten, she said. And yet, it stayed on my phone, he said with a strange smile. Some things choose to remain, she replied. The terminal beeped. The files had finished uploading. The message was sent across encrypted channels. It could not be stopped now. Joran stepped back. What happens if Earth ignores it? Then Earth burns, the Queen said simply. A cold silence filled the room. Lyra looked down. Joran closed his eyes for a moment, then turned toward the ship. We should leave. Someone might have traced the signal. The Queen nodded and followed him back. As they lifted off, the hidden door closed behind them, sealing the truth in shadow once more. Joran sat beside her in the cockpit. You said before that you owe me your life. If Earth listens, what do you owe them? The Queen didn't answer right away. Then she spoke without emotion. Everything, asterisk. The Kalari ship dropped out of light speed near Earth's moon. Joran sat forward in his seat, staring at the blue planet that had once felt so far away. He hadn't seen Earth from orbit before. It looked peaceful, beautiful. It didn't look ready for war. Lara tapped a small screen beside her seat. Signal link opened. They're hailing us. The Queen stood tall behind them, her armor gleaming in the cockpit light. Let them speak first. A human voice crackled over the comms. Unidentified vessel, this is Earth Command. Identify yourself immediately. Joran glanced at the Queen. She nodded slightly. He leaned forward and pressed the button. This is Joran Avid, Mechanic ID 2274. I'm aboard a Kalari diplomatic vessel. We have urgent data and a representative for council view. There was a pause. Then the voice returned, sharper. This channel is restricted. Stand down and prepare for boarding. The Queen's eyes narrowed. They will waste time. We don't have time. Joran looked at her. Can you override their delay? I can do more than that, she said as her fingers moved across the console. A bright blue symbol lit up on the ship's outer shell. It was the seal of the Kalari Royal House. A universal sign of highest authority. The Earth Fleet responded immediately. The blockade shifted. One ship moved aside to open a corridor toward the surface. Joran felt the shift as the ship entered Earth's atmosphere. The world grew larger beneath them, and for the first time since the station attack, he felt hope. They landed on a private pad near the Accord Embassy in Geneva. Soldiers in black armor waited with rifles, unsure whether to salute or aim. The Queen stepped down the ramp first. Her presence made everyone freeze. Joran followed, his boots heavy against the metal platform. An officer approached. We were not told of your arrival. Who authorized this? The Queen raised her chin. I authorize myself. You will take us to your highest council now. The officer hesitated, then gave a nod and led them to a secure convoy parked nearby. Inside the armored vehicle, Lyra whispered to Joran. Do you think they'll believe us? I don't know, he said honestly. But if they don't, they'll believe her. The Queen stared out the window as the city passed by. Your world is loud, always moving, always impatient. Joran smiled faintly. We get that a lot. The convoy stopped at a tall glass tower. Inside, Earth's leaders waited. Some were nervous. Others were clearly annoyed. The room fell silent as the Queen stepped forward. Joran stood beside her, holding the message cube. She placed it on the table. This is Kalari royal proof of Karsan invasion plans. It holds intercepted codes, fleet movements, and declarations of attack. One councilman crossed his arms. Why should we believe you now when you said nothing before? I said much before, she replied coldly. You refused to listen. Now the blood is yours to clean. Another official leaned forward. And the human? Why is he here? Joran stepped up. Because I saw the truth when no one else did. Because I didn't wait for orders to do what was right. The room was quiet again. No one argued. The cube's data was already uploading. The screens behind them filled with evidence. Fleet charts, Karsan battle plans, recordings of intercepted messages. It was undeniable. One of the generals stood. What do you want from us? The Queen looked at Joran, then answered with calm precision. A united response. Kalari and human fleets combined. Defense now. Or extinction later. Another councilwoman whispered. And if we refuse? You won't, the Queen said. The doors opened behind them. A messenger entered with a shaking voice. "Sir, Karzan ships have just crossed Mars orbit. They'll be here in hours." Panic rippled through the council. Orders were shouted. Screens flickered with emergency alerts. Earth was no longer safe. Joran turned to the Queen. "We did it." "They know now." "Knowing is not enough," she replied. "Now they must act." Alarms blared across Earth's military networks as the Karzan fleet crossed the moons. Shadow. Emergency alerts flashed on every screen in the Geneva Council room while leaders shouted over one another. Joran stood beside the Queen, watching the chaos unfold. His heart beat faster with every warning message. The Queen remained still, calm as a frozen lake, her eyes locked on the red dots moving across the star map. Estimated time to contact, 3 hours. A technician reported. "They're not just here to scare us," Lyra said quietly. "They're coming to finish what they started." A general stepped forward. "We'll launch interceptors, scramble our planetary shields, and mobilize ground defenses." "Too late," the Queen replied. "You needed days of warning. You now have minutes to make your last stand count." Joran stepped toward the holographic map and pointed at the largest incoming ship. "What about that one? Can we target it first?" "Not with human weapons," the general replied. "Our systems won't penetrate its armor, but Kalari weapons can," the Queen said. Eyes turned to her as she stepped forward and removed a ring from her finger. A blue projection appeared, showing the internal layout of her personal vessel. "This ship holds a plasma core prototype, illegal by Accord standards. But it can destroy a Karzan dreadnought in one hit." A scientist narrowed his eyes. "You're saying you brought a weapon of mass destruction to Earth?" "I brought the last card Kalari could play. I planned to destroy it if the Accord accepted peace. They didn't." The room fell silent as the meaning of her words sank. And Joran spoke before anyone else. "Can we control the weapon from here?" "No, it requires manual detonation. It must be flown into the enemy ship and triggered at close range." "You mean a suicide mission?" Lyra said. The Queen nodded. Slowly. "There's no other way to deliver the core past their shields." Joran looked at her, searching her face. "You were planning to do it yourself." "I am Queen," she said softly. "My people died while the Accord waited. I must answer that with more than words." He took a step forward. "Let me do it." The Queen blinked. The room stirred. Lyra grabbed his arm. "Joran, no. You've done enough." He didn't look away from the Queen. "I'm not a soldier. I'm not special. But I can fly a ship. I can finish what I started." "You saved me once already," the Queen said. "You owe nothing more." "Maybe not," he replied. "But I won't stand here while others burn." "That's not the human way." The general nodded grimly. "We'll patch targeting support through our satellites. You just get that core into position." Joran turned to Lyra and pulled her into a brief hug. "Tell my brothers I didn't mess it up too badly." She swallowed hard but smiled through it. "You're the best damn mechanic I've ever seen." The Queen stepped closer. She looked into his eyes, searching for weakness, doubt, fear. She found none. She handed him a small silver stone. "This will activate the core. Once triggered, you'll have 10 seconds before detonation." Joran nodded as the Queen opened a private line to her ship. The landing pad was cleared, and the vessel rose from its hold. He stepped inside, sealed the hatch, and took the pilot's seat. Everything responded to his touch like the ship knew him. The command screen lit up with Earth's battle grid. Red lights flashed everywhere. The enemy had arrived. Joran pushed forward, guiding the sleek vessel into the black sky. His hands were steady, his breathing calm. The Queen watched from the command tower. Her eyes never left the screen showing Joran's signal. Earth's defense fleet engaged the enemy. Lasers flashed through space, but the Karzan ships didn't. Slow, Joran weaved between them, dodging blasts, ignoring the noise of alarms. His only focus was the massive ship ahead. The dreadnought opened fire. One blast struck his ship's wing, spinning him sideways. He fought for control, sweat running down his face. "Almost there," he whispered, as he reached the center of the dreadnought's shield. He opened the core compartment and touched the silver stone. The countdown began as the screen turned bright blue. He stared at the timer without blinking, and then, just before the light consumed him, he smiled. Asterisk. The explosion lit up the sky like a second sun above Earth's orbit. The Karzan dreadnought broke apart into burning fragments, spinning silently. Into the void, alarms on Earth's defense grid slowly faded into silence as the remaining enemy ships scattered and vanished into retreat. In the Geneva command tower, no one moved for several seconds. The screen showing Joran's signal had gone dark. The Queen stood motionless. Her hands rested on the edge of the console, her face calm but unreadable. A technician whispered, "He did it." "He actually did it." The general gave a heavy nod. Joran avid civilian. Technician, human. Hero. Lyra turned away from the screen, her eyes full of tears. She didn't wipe them. She let them fall. The council room remained quiet. There were no speeches, no applause. Just the heavy weight of one man's final act. The Queen finally spoke. His name must never be forgotten. She turned and left. The tower without another word. Outside, the city was filled with light. Not from fear, but from hope. People gathered in the streets, staring at the sky. News broadcasts repeated his name. Messages from every country spoke of his sacrifice. Lyra stood on the landing pad, watching the broken sky. Her voice was barely a whisper. He didn't even hesitate. The Queen appeared beside her, silent at first. Then she held something out in her hand. It was Joran's phone. Burned at the edges, but still whole. Recovered from the debris field by Kalari drones. Lara took it gently. The screen flickered. Then the image appeared. That same photo of the Queen, standing proud under the ancient blue tree. "He kept this even at the end," the Queen said. Lyra smiled weakly. He said it looked powerful. Like someone who could change the world. "He was wrong," the Queen replied softly. "He was the one who changed it." 3 days later, a memorial was held in orbit around the remains of the old station. Ships from across the galaxy gathered in silence. A sculpture of Joran was placed on a small platform floating near Earth's new defense ring. It was simple. A figure in a technician's suit holding a wrench in one hand and a star in the other. Below it, one sentence was carved in a dozen languages. "He saved us not because he had to, but because he chose to." After the ceremony, the Queen returned to her people. But she left behind a sealed document for Earth's leaders. Inside was a proposal for a new alliance. One built not on fear, but on sacrifice. Not on politics, but on truth. Earth accepted the terms without argument. The name Joran Avid appeared in every signed line of the new treaty. Lara became the first human ambassador to Kalari space. She carried Joran's story with her to every star system she visited. Wherever she spoke, people listened. Not because she was important, but because the story was, the Queen ruled longer than any in Kalari history. But she never removed the small silver stone from her robe. Each time she touched it, she remembered the look in Joran's eyes as he flew toward the impossible. Many years passed. Earth changed. The Kalari changed. But one thing did not. A human's choice to save someone he didn't know, carry a message he didn't understand, and risk his life for a world that might not listen. And somewhere in the hearts of two species, who once stood on opposite sides of fear, that choice remained. Joran's story became more than history. It became legend. It became something every child learned, not just on Earth, but on Kalari homeworlds too. They would say his name and remember. Not the war, but the moment peace began. And always. The last lesson was this. Even the smallest person can shape the stars.